Cool. So this is the call for learning a bit more about the enterprise change or enterprise cohort program, which will be starting in September. And it's just the beginning of the call while we're just waiting for everyone to arrive. And then in just a minute or so, we will begin. Welcome for those people who have just arrived. Feel free to put stuff in the chat around what you're feeling, where you're from, that kind of thing. And we'll just do that until everyone's here. Well, actually, we've had about 5 minutes already, I would say.
Yeah,
since
let's jump in.
Right, let's go. Fantastic. So, probably be good for us to give a little bit of an intro, and then as with all things AWA, we'll do a bit of interactivity in the breakout rooms and things, and then come back. We've got some questions for you to ponder and share about. And then after the breakout rooms, we'll go into the mechanics of how we think the class will run. And then we're very privileged to have, I think, 2-3 people here who have actually already who are definitely coming on the cohort, and so we'll hear from them as well about perhaps why they're here and what's going on for them. And then any questions and things like that, feel free to ask throughout, and we can hopefully answer those as well. So if we start off with a bit sort of about why we think this is, you know, why we've done this, why we put this together, what the purpose is, the why, if you like. And feel free to chip in, Sam, Kevin, around the why. Certainly I can give 1 or 2 sentences, but it'd be good to hear from all of us as well. So the reason why I feel that this is why we've created this is because we've got these 2 fantastic enterprise classes, which I see many of you have been on, and they're great for that experience, that growth, that kind of knowledge acquisition. And then then going further, we have to actually apply that stuff. We actually have to go and do it. And it's the doing in which where we learn most, like more than what you learn on any class, the application of this. And when you get into the wilds, as it were, and then you know, things don't work quite as planned because people are difficult like that, and figuring out how we work with large groups of people and helping them through a change is often is way bigger than anyone could possibly teach on a class. So it's the doing of it, and the doing of it is really hard. So we can all understand it, but doing of it is hard. And so this program is for us to be able to help each other, to learn from each other, to grow from each other, and actually make the real change, the real difference that we hope for in organizations. And it's that kind of guided, facilitated approach to change. And I feel like I've been talking for ages, so feel free to chip in with anything else, guys.
Sure, I'll take the baton. So I think, and we'll do a little bit of introductions so you'll kind of have a sense of who we are. I've been doing this work as a practitioner for many years now, and a lot of it's just figuring it out on my own and sort of talking to people at conferences and spitballing. And I think that the need for agility is only getting greater. And leaders and organizations, especially with COVID, are just, they're upside down. Their world is upside down, and they're trying to find a way forward, and they need help. And so there's a real need in the greater world. And I think that at a practitioner level, there's a need to build out our skills. It's a very wide gamut of capability to do this work. And so creating a space where we can come together and support each other to do that work and to grow into the places that we need to grow to be effective, I think is really, really critical. So I think this represents a convergence of those and other streams. That's a little bit of what I perceive as why this work is important today.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go on, Kevin, to talk about how you were you know, part of the team like Simon to actually put together learning outcomes that are the foundation of the program. And so I feel like the little pretender that comes in, whose purpose is to keep you guys mindful of what it's like to be less experienced in this space. Because I more recently, and I'm talking, I forget how many years ago, it feels like 3, it might be more like 5, that I went through the AWA boot camp, and then went back to my enterprise change role, or took the step into an enterprise change role within a large bank. And I realized how uniquely lucky I was in that role, that I was supported very unusually by a team of highly collaborative, non-competitive coaches who really helped me grow. Because it's somewhat terrifying to learn all of these kind of very collaborative, coachy, holdy, spacey kind of techniques that require us to have done a lot of inner growth of our own, the way that we see ourselves, right? And so that we can hold this space without our own emotional difficulties, right? And to be really confident to hold this kind of elevated space that people can come in and play and actually change the way they work. And, you know, of course, at that time, there was no cohort program. I was going through a cohort program for professional coaching, and I am just so super excited that we are able to offer this, like the incredible power of cohort support to help go through this internal growth that's both professional, personal, through skills and capability and being as well as doing. I just think it's a phenomenal program because, of course, like Kevin was just saying and Simon alluded to, is that Agile coaching is so much more than just coaching, right? It has such a breadth of scope. So I'm super excited, and it's been a fantastic co-creation so far.
Awesome.
So I think, yeah, go for it, Cam. Yeah.
I was just going to say, and there will be some amount of, as for those of you who know Antoinette and I call facilitator transparency moments. So I was thinking maybe we can just do real brief intros and then jump into the next chunk, into the breakouts. Does that work?
Yeah, of course. Cool. Yeah.
You wanna go? Someone else? Or I can go. I don't care.
Okay, yeah, you go, Kevin.
Okay. Well, as you can see on my name, I'm Kevin Callahan. Yeah, I'm a practicing enterprise coach. That's what I do. I've been at this for a while. I kind of grew into it. Just real briefly, I was a Scrum Master, and my teams did well. I guess I helped them. It got attention. I helped solve impediments outside of the team once we got good. And that pattern just repeated itself until I was working with the entire organization. And as I got to that organizational scale, this is probably about 8 years ago now, I realized real quick that what enabled me to be successful at the team level was not going to cut it at the organizational level. And I needed a whole different set of skills. So I went back to grad school and I got an advanced degree in organizational development and change, and have been trying to just get a toehold in the various organizations I've worked with, which range from really large multinational financial services insurance companies on down to small local production houses. And right now I'm mostly working in state government here in the US, and it's actually quite fabulous. We're doing some really, really powerful work. So yeah, I'm just really passionate about this. I believe the world needs it, and look forward to both sharing what I know and holding the space, more importantly, for you all to share what you know, because I think there's a lot of power there.
Thank you, Kevin. Do you want to introduce yourself, Sam?
Yeah, I suppose I feel like I've half introduced myself.
Yeah.
Let me give you very briefly the other half. I suppose my background is in project and program management. I think I've had a real passion around bringing people together to solve problems and to meet challenges. I think I recognise how through my own path of development, I've really gone from expert into achiever, if anybody knows, like through leadership development framework. And I've been working my way up, you know, into inhabiting higher levels of everyday kind of operation, if you like, of my human operating system, so that I can hold the space for this kind of transformational change. I recognise that the predictability of work, you know, I think post-COVID, right, there's just no denying that our world is very unpredictable. We are in a VUCA world. And I think my passion is really in terms of human change, because I just recognise that it doesn't matter what problem it is we're trying to solve, whether it's highly complex nuclear mathematics of market risk calculations or operational difficulties of stitching together huge complicated data sets for end-to-end banking system testing. It is always in the people that we have the challenge. And what I feel personally around where we are with the world of work and the world in general is that, you know, we talk a lot about organizations needing to elevate their level of consciousness, you know, organizations rise to the consciousness of the leaders, but, you know, what does that mean? You know, it sounds very esoteric, but what I'm all about is breaking that down into something that's much more tangible so that we can really realize actual change. That's me. Over to you, Simon.
Yeah, so many of you know me already. I'm founder of AWA, and I created AWA really out of partly out of frustration about having to do all this stuff on my own. And I've been working in organizational change space for many, many years, and it's a lonely, hard, frustrating, and difficult place to be. And so AWA really is an extension of myself in many ways, about wanting that connection, wanting that help and support, and that community feeling of that I'm not alone. And this cohort really is a further extension of that, about that wanting to go it with someone else, to go it with other people, because by definition we are at the front. We know slightly more in many cases than those people that are around us in our organizations, our clients, our jobs. And that can be a lonely and hard, frustrating place. And so really my journey has been one of connection and one of looking to build containers such that other people can thrive and grow. And that's really my background and experience through, you know, there's been many other things along the way. I was a programmer, I became an architect, you know, an agile coach, etc. But the real power, I think, of this is connection and collaboration and being together while we solve these problems. And like I say, I think this cohort program is the last piece of that jigsaw in many ways. So yeah, that's me.
Great. And before we shift over to the breakouts, Sam did mention this, and I do think it's important that you know, this is still a very new offering. It's a new certificate. It was only finalized in February. Simon and I are two of the 5 members that spent almost 2 years on a volunteering basis just creating this thing and trying ourselves to answer the question, what does it mean to be an expert in enterprise coaching? And how do we create a thing that is both rigorous and meaningful, because we don't want it to be that anybody can just show up and spend a couple of days and get this thing, but also that it is achievable with the right support and the right context. So this is our answer to that call. And so, you know, I think it's important that you know, they're just in naming where it is in its evolution and who the people are here. You know, that there's some our soul is in this thing. It's not just a transaction.
Yeah, I mean, as Kevin said, we spent 2 years building out what it actually takes to make organizational change work. And that's not just external stuff, that's internal stuff. There's leadership, there's coaching, there's the knowledge of what organizations can be, the structures, all of the processes, that kind of thing. 2 years we spent looking at every aspect to think, what does it actually take to make this work? And then after that 2 years, we then spent the next, 6 months or so building out how to actually implement that. How can we teach that? What does that look like? That's the result of this cohort program, it's really the combination of, well, it's a life's work, but it's also the combination of the last 2.5 years specifically. So there's a lot gone into this. It's not just something that we've come up with overnight and thought, oh, here's a course, let's sell that. It's actually, it's literally like a life's work, basically, it's gone into this thing. Yeah. Cool, okay. So let's make this a bit more interactive, shall we? We've got some questions for you to consider. And what we thought is that we could go into breakout rooms for a short time, consider these questions, and then come back and see what the results of that is. And then we can discuss that, and hopefully that will enhance what we get out of our time together today, for sure. So what are the questions that we would like to ask our group?
I just put them in the chat.
Questions? Fantastic. So we have 3 questions. The first one, why is this needed now? Why is this class needed now? What does it mean for you? What is this class now? Imagine that you've gone on this class. This is the second question. Imagine that you've gone on this class. You've done the whole thing. When I say class, I mean the whole cohort program. You've done the cohort program, and it's been really successful, fantastic, right? It's everything you'd hoped for. What's different about you? Or what's different in general? What would that look like for you? And then the last one is, if you think back to the classes, I'm assuming everyone here has been on the classes by this question. If not, then you can learn for others. You think back to the classes that you've been on, the 2 enterprise classes, and the content that came up there. Out of all that content, what is it that you would like to take deeper? Those classes, by sort of definition, are very broad and not that deep because there's such a big topic. So which bits would you like to go really deep? Does everybody understand the questions? Yeah? Okay, fantastic. So we're going to spend about 12 minutes. I think it's me who's got certain breakout rooms. I'll do that quickly.
Yeah, and we have 18 people. So if we did 6 breakouts, each one would have 3 participants in it.
3 to 4 participants. Fantastic. Okay, we'll do that then. Okay, so I'm ready with that. So we're going to go into breakout rooms, and we're going to spend
15 minutes.
Options. Okay, don't seem to have any options here, but that's okay. So we'll just have to time it manually. So we have 15 minutes. We're running 2 minutes behind, so we want to do 13 minutes. Another administrative moment. We'll go for 15 minutes and then we'll shorten a bit later on. Fantastic. Good. Here we go. Oh, and now I get my options. Fantastic. So
great. So please manage your time. That gives each person about 5 minutes. Self-facilitate, and when you come back, we'll look forward to hearing just a couple of high-level nuggets.
Welcome back.
Yay.
Fantastic. Good. Welcome back. So, what did we find out? What interesting things did you talk about? And are there any questions and things, or any insights that you would like to share?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. I can put my facilitators probably, seeing as there's probably just enough of us to do that. So if anyone wants to raise their hand at risk of feeling a bit like a schoolroom, then I can play my facilitator role. I think Ulla first, and then Ian, if that's all right. Go for it, Ulla.
I'll do it in reverse order. We talked about a lot about the bootcamp that it was a very interesting overview, but scratching on the surface, and we want to continue this journey. That was one point, and dig deeper. And with regards to the trigger, why this class now, there were some arguments from the current situation, Corona, etc., but also a lot about being at a point in time to increase self-reflection, and everyone showed a growth attitude, and also that also displayed in the I call it Wunderfrage, what happens, what's the difference once you're in, and it was also added by one point to make better connections at management level later on. Guys, did I reflect everything correctly, or did I miss something? Anything to add?
No, that's pretty good.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Rees.
Yeah, I was just going to talk to that first point about why is it needed now, actually, and from a different point of view as a consultant. I think it's because I keep coming across the same sort of problems and the same sort of solutions that are focused on practices, really, to try and solve them, and talk about being agile, and it'd be good to hear none of that, and actually focus on the people. But actually, Karen made a really good point relating to the current situation we're in with COVID as well. That actually is an opportunity, that there's going to be massive organisational change anyway. So the timing is great to be able to get on and help with that. So I don't know if Karen and Øystein, you want to talk to the other 2 points at all? No,
And coming off mute if you are going to say
you're off
anything.
mute.
No, sorry, I was giving Øystein a chance there. Absolutely, and one of the things that was really key was this ability to be able to really implement some real change and help move that forward. And I think a point that resonated for me was when you said, what's different was, well, nobody will be talking about Agile. It will be just all part and parcel of the new normal and what's happening. And I thought that was a really valid point. And we all agreed that something that we learnt in boot camp, and forgive me because it was, I think, 3 years ago when I did mine, was the model that you introduced, Simon, the kind of the double loop model. And I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember what it was called, but
Neither could I.
but that was something that we'd like to take to the next level. So really working at that strategic level in organisations.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Brilliant. Anyone else would like to share anything?
Can I volunteer for someone else?
Oh, Edward, go.
John, I think you should share your metaphor.
Right. So
Sorry.
So we were talking about, okay, so we're talking about how transformation was what, 50 to 70% of them fail, and with COVID happening, that's just going to accelerate. So we were saying that we don't want to contribute to that 50 to 70%, and I was saying that I've seen effective coaches, and they're like bath bombs, what you buy as presents in Lush. So when we throw a bath bomb into the bathtub, it's just water, and it spreads all over, and you get the fragrance all across the bathtub. And I was just saying that a very effective agile coach is something like that. It goes into the organization and it spreads its energy and change all across the organizations. And it was an analogy of how we want, I guess I want to be as a coach.
Mm.
Mm,
And Edward seems to like that analogy a lot.
that's beautiful.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, we are the people we've been waiting for. The exemplars that we need to be. We can't expect other people to do this change, to show up, unless we show up. And yeah, I like that. Brilliant. Thank you. Well, I think you're all in the right place now, because this class has one of the main core streams going through, and there are multiple streams. One of those is our own personal development, our own personal journey. And it's one of the artifacts that you'll need to create should you join us on this journey. And that is a journal of your own self-development. And so for those of you who were at my talk on Friday, a few of you there, and we may have covered this. I don't normally cover this in the class, but there is a pattern for self-development around being aware of oneself, emotional self-management, and that reflection, and that kind of pattern. We'll be using that and other forms of self-development to kind of grow ourselves throughout the entire cohort program. So that's like a very strong thread, as you would expect, on the program, to develop ourselves. Yeah, cool. Any other questions and things that anyone wants to ask? And then we can obviously give you some logistical information and things.
Is that a hand up?
Oh, there is a hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Claire, what would you like to ask?
Sorry, you might cover this one in a minute, but we were just wondering, what size is the maximum for the cohort? How many people do you think, or do you hope to have on the course?
We'll never have more than 24 people on the class, on the cohort. In reality, it's probably going to be a bit less than that. So we don't know exactly, because it depends on how many people sign up, but there definitely won't be any more than 24 people. Yeah, but I don't know if there's anything more we want to add on that.
Just to say that I guess the design behind that number is that you get the support of your cohort, right? Because the cohort program is really about exploration. Like, you talk a bit about wanting deepening. Well, deepening is what you get, but not deepening because we give you the deeper. Deepening because we support you in your exploration of deeper. And so let's say there's, 5 of you in a working group versus 15 or 24 in a working group. There is obviously going to be variation in where you explore. And so that's the reason behind that number, is because it's just a really good balance of breadth and depth to help you in the cohort program as we go exploring.
Yeah. And I would throw in there as well that, a lot of this work sits squarely on a foundation of complexity thinking and complex adaptive response. And in complex contexts, there's no one way. There's not like the path, right? We can articulate outcomes that we would desire to achieve. And then there are up to possibly infinite numbers of ways to get there. And that number, if we don't have, in my experience at least, if you don't have sort of a critical mass of people, you don't get enough ideas in the room and perspectives in the room and energy in the room to move. And it just kind of, it's a beautiful thing in its own way, though it's not kind of a collective movement. And if you get too many people, it just bogs down. And so there's sort of a sweet spot of maybe, a bare minimum of maybe 10, 12 people up to a ceiling of maybe 20, 24 people that seems to kind of have that generative energy around it, and enough diversity of perspective and diversity of experience so that you all are supporting each other as much as, if not more so, than the facilitators, who are really there to kind of, think maybe a metaphor, captain of the ship, right? Here's where we're going, but the captain doesn't sail the boat. They can't, right? There's people who are there that are doing that work. This is very much a work thing. This is not about learning how to sail. This is sailing. This is taking the ship out and seeing what happens when we're out in the wild ocean with it. With the kind of support that you need. Like, I would have loved that kind of support when I figured this stuff out and learned. It would have been amazing. So,
yeah, I think moving away from is that all right with your question, Claire?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
So adding on something which I think both of you have said, which I've been using a lot of metaphors in this call, which is always good. And another metaphor, which I think either Kevin or Sam came up with this in one of our previous calls, but using this idea of the calls in the cohort are like a diving board. And you can climb up there, the calls will take you up there, but then you dive off and can go deep in the workplace, in the doing of the stuff that was brought up and contained in the call, and in the after work as well. So I really like that metaphor.
Nice.
It's kind of climbing up and then going deeper into the work than you perhaps could have done without a diving board. Fantastic metaphor. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Oh,
and specifically, I was going to, because we're going to sort of move on from in the next few minutes from talking about the content and the mechanics of the thing, and hear from a couple of folks who have already said yeah, because we thought it would be amazing for you not to hear from us, but to hear from your peers who have already gotten enough clarity around their decision to say, yep, I'm in. This is what I want to do. This is for me. So are there any other questions sort of about the mechanics, about the structure, the logistics? A lot of this is has been made public, but we want to just make sure that people are getting answers if they have some. Yeah, John, go for it.
Hi. So besides the sessions that have been published, so the 90-minute sessions every 2 weeks, what are the connection points for the cohort throughout the next for the 9 months?
So feel free to chip in, Kevin, Sam, if I forget anything. So there's the calls, as you rightly say, 90-minute calls. We have the main other thing, obviously, would be the residential. So there'll be a 4-day residential, which will be somewhere beautiful in Europe. We're just kind of still finalising exactly where that will be. The planning for that got a little bit thrown out due to COVID, but by the time that we come to do that, which will be around next May-ish time, then hopefully all of that will have gone away. So we've got the 4-day programme in person, and then we've got mentoring calls. So there'll be one-to-one calls with one of us, so at least 2 of those. And then there's introductory stuff as well to get set up. Other touch points, and I may have missed things here, but if I have chip in. The other thing is that we'll have our own, just like we did with the class, kind of Slack channel and things like that. And we're also going to be using a learning development platform called Moodle. And this has all the information, it has extra information, it has a whole load of stuff in it. We're still just setting that up at the moment, but it's a fantastic learning and development environment which guides you through the whole program. You can upload stuff there, and we can review things, we can look at things, you can download more information. There's a whole bunch of stuff there which kind of guides through the whole process as well. So it's kind of held together by this program. Have I missed anything?
Yeah, I would also add that a lot of this will be emergent, right? If participants have needs around support, my hope and intent is that you'll find each other and create that, right? And that rather than relying on the facilitators to create that for you, that this is not like a expert-led. You know, it's like we're not delivering the content to you. Like, we are creating it together. And you're creating it for your context, and you're figuring it out for your context. So if you need help with that, you've got this group of incredible practitioners there with you that can help. And if you guys can't figure it out, of course we're available. Though in those 2-week spans, you know, the hope is that you're helping each other and learning together as much as on your own. Another real critical thing that hooks into this is there is an accreditation assessment at the end from ICAgile, and we knew as a design team that we could not assess this in the traditional kind of Skype video call with 3 existing experts. It's just too broad. And so what we're wanting to do is, by the time you get to that assessment, you've already essentially passed. And we know you've passed because you're writing your case study, you're journaling. At 1/3 through the program, you'll have your first mentorship kind of inspect adapt call with one of us. And at 2/3, you'll have another one, so that by the time you're to the end, everybody's confident that you've met the learning objectives. If there were places that you needed to kind of come up a little more, those have been identified and you've been able to close that gap. And it's, you know, again, we're intending to do this in a lean, value-centric way. Let's do it in small batch. Let's do it with fast feedback. Let's do it with frequent inspect and adapt, and make sure that everybody's getting what they need the entire way, rather than getting to the end and being like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff that didn't happen.
And that's
that help, John?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Oh, brilliant. Good.
Claudia has a hand up, it looks like.
Yes. What's your recommendation for people who don't have a project right now?
So
can they participate, or are they excluded from participation?
That's a fantastic question, and it's actually something which we've considered long and hard. And what we've come up with is that even if it's not a paid kind of project, I think there's at least one person already who has signed up who is going to be looking at volunteering somewhere to do some work with a charity, for example, as a part-time thing, to enable them to have somewhere to practice the things we're talking about. So it doesn't have to be a full paid engagement, but it does have to be some kind of engagement, because as hopefully we're getting the picture that this isn't a, hey, here's a load of information, you've got to remember it and regurgitate it. It's a, hey, here's some springboard, some ideas, here's some holding space and some connections. Now go away and do it. So there needs to be somewhere that you can practice these things, write up a case study, bring back the challenges, and be helped and adapting every 2 weeks on a continual kind of helping the organisation grow. So some of us might be contractors, for example, or some of us may be permanent staff and lose our jobs halfway through. Hopefully not, but you never know with the way the world is. And so what we're looking at here is that if somebody does end up losing an engagement halfway through, again, if there is a small gap, then we can help and try to cover that stuff. And we would encourage someone, obviously, to do something pretty quickly to get another engagement. And so it doesn't matter if there's an engagement and then it changes to another engagement halfway through, that's fine. The course is set up so you don't have to follow the whole thing all the way through with one client or one engagement. You can break it up as long as the gap isn't too great, because it really is it's a doing thing rather than a sort of knowledge acquisition thing. Well, it's both, but you have to do the doing thing as well. Yeah.
Thanks.
And also, we if you are totally stuck, then I think that we do work with. I know that one person's already doing this. I don't know how many more places there might be, but we do work and have worked with charities before, and we've managed to, I think, at least we're beginning the conversations. We're setting one person up to be able to work with one of our clients on a, I think it's a volunteer basis, to be honest. But you know, there might be opportunities that we could help find a client for.
Well, we do have. Is it okay if we move? Because we're coming up on the close of the hour here, and we do have a couple of guests that would be awesome to hear from.
Absolutely.
So in the Slack, did I get the folks right, Simon? And okay, so we have three folks, Roberto, Tanya, and Kim, who have agreed to participate in this webinar, both as well to be here and participate, but also to share kind of why they decided to jump in. So we wanted to give them a few minutes. So the three of you, is there anything you would like to share around kind of?
Thank you.
If you were to tweet why I joined this cohort.
Okay. I just hop in first because I have to hop off the call in a second.
Sure, perfect.
Yeah. So you know, it's the same pretty much as I was saying in the breakout room we were just in. I like, you know, Simon started it, application. For me, it's all about the application, and I'm somebody who just has to have a really sort of sound understanding of something before it's going to becomes a go-to solution for me. And having quite a lot of coaching experience already and various tools and whatnot, I just see that this needs more work and more in-depth understanding so that I don't, you know, go to other go-tos that I have. And I'd like that to be the case. And I like what you just said, Kevin, you know, there's no one way. And this is, I think, a little bit the case at the moment, where you have tools that you use that are effective, that do work, but you would also like to try something else, but you're just not versatile enough and confident then enough in this new approach to actually commit to it. and propose that, and that you sort of tend to then just, that's what I've noticed with myself, and I'm basically calling myself out by doing this, and you know, having myself tested and have other people look and say, okay, here's your gaps, and that's what I'd like to know. So that's what's prompted me to sign up.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Tanja.
Kim or Roberto, you wanna go? Say anything?
I can jump in next if that's okay. For me, it's kind of the same. Like, we spend a lot of time holding up a mirror to clients and to different teams and parts of organizations where we're asking them to reflect and look at what works and what doesn't work. So she likes to join in on Agile conversations at the appropriate moments. But yeah, basically, how often do we do that for ourselves? And in a supported place where we actually have people with the right experience and industry leaders in their fields that are able to sort of just say, hey, maybe this would have been more effective. And I think when I do look back and retro my own client sites, I often come up with that whole, I know this wasn't as good as it could have been, but I just don't have the breadth of experience to know what might have worked better. And so it's just as much, it's a selfish, I want to learn and continue to evolve, but also I am just transitioning into a new client organization. And one of the interview questions that I got, which quite rightly was, why on earth do you feel entitled to call yourself an Agile coach? And I didn't want to simply answer because I've done the boot camp, like I have, and that's great, and it's competency based, but why do you feel justified in calling yourself a coach? Like, it's a big question if you sit back and reflect on it. And yeah, I've been coaching for at least 2 years now, and I have a lot of success with teams. I have that bath bomb effect at team and department level, but the last role and this current role is asking me to step up again, and I just want to know that I'm not running, flailing, not knowing what I'm doing and just destructing. I want to know that I'm having a positive impact, because some of the work we do is quite delicate. And yeah, I just want to I want to be a nice fragrance, not necessarily a tart.
Yeah.
So that's why I've signed up.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Awesome. So I guess it's kind of the same things, the same reasons why I jumped into this cohort. To be honest, actually, one of the reasons I jumped into the bootcamp the first time I took it with William and Adventures with Agile, it was because I was coaching teams and how my client asked me to go see more in the tactical or in the enterprise level, right? So, and I was like, yeah, well, I may have some point of view, or maybe I have some tools within my toolbox that could help, but then I wanted to learn more, dig deeper, right? So after having this awesome class with William and Adventures with Agile, I loved the way the class was delivered and how it helped me grow as a person, not just as a professional, but as a person. And then after using the new tools that I learned or new practices, and then thinking back of how I used them, how I might have used them instead of what would I change? I just like thinking that digging deeper into knowing myself as a person, as a leader, as an Agile transition leader, or however you want to call it. And also to be able to help organizations dig deeper and be more aware of who they are, where they are, and where they want to go. I think this is the right step for me, just to be able to co-create, as Kevin was saying. It's not about you go there to learn what Simon or Sam or Kevin are going to tell you. It's what we as a core, we're going to go create, given the different experience that everyone has. So that's one of the reasons why, of the many reasons why I decided to jump into this cohort.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what hit me most about the three things that you've said is this idea of a safe space. It's holding a mirror up to ourselves. It's about learning from each other, the co-creation. It's about using the cohort as a springboard to go deeper, to learn about ourselves, to learn about the organizations within the context that we're in, to be able to use all of that to raise ourselves up and those around us, to work on those relationships and then raise the organizational consciousness up to a new level. And all of those things, that's kind of what I'm, piecing that together in my own words, and also reflecting on what we hope that we're creating is that.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that helps. Anyone knows what they might be getting into.
I often feel like the power of coaching is that, you know, we can go further and faster with a coach. And I think that's just amplified with this cohort program, because where else can you get that breadth of experience of the range of organizations that we all work in? You know, it's not just one of us, it's all of us. We're tapping into that collective learning. And so I think that's really the power of this cohort program, is that, you know, breadth and depth of experience that we can tap into as we go on this journey together.
Okay. So thank you very much for sharing, Kim, Alberto, and I know Tanya's just had to leave. So thank you for that. That's very generous of you to give your time to share. Thank you. Are there any more questions that anybody would like to ask? We've got, where are we? Probably about 10 minutes left before the end of the call. And so this is basically 10 minutes of our time that you can ask us anything you want, ask each other things or whatever.
Do you feel like you don't know what you don't know and you don't know what to ask? Or do you feel like completely comfortable and you have no questions? Give me a thumbs up if you just don't know what you don't know and you don't know what to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what an amazing space to be in.
Yeah.
Right.
Just maybe share a little story of before I or when I embarked on like this style of flipped classroom learning. And there was a group of, funnily enough, 24 of us, coincidentally. And it was so funny because I'm going to take you to the point where we were about 4 months in, right? Almost like about a third of the way through, actually. And there was such a range of responses in the group, right? That because everyone thought they were signing up for a regular class, you got the group of people who are expecting it to be like a regular classroom, you know, with the teacher like that would like give them all the information, and they were freaking out. They were like, what on earth is this? You know, and they were broadly split into two groups, which were the worriers that were like, oh my God, what am I supposed to be doing? And have I done it yet? And have I done it right? And is this right? And am I looking at the right thing? And the other half of that group, which were like, yeah, not doing anything, right? We haven't been told what to do. You know, we haven't been told what hoops explicitly to jump through. And it was because our cohort leader was giving us questions like, go and explore, you know, this particular method. Or let's say, you know, I'm going to make it up now, but let's say for making work visual at senior leadership level, go and explore a method that you've never used. And then write an essay or report back or create something. But go and explore something that you've never used. Find out what happens. Come back. Right? And so those of us that were like really curious, we had a great time because we'd go and do all these things and come and report back. And like, it wasn't just like a reporting back. It was like you made the natural energetic connections across the group. And so like these little study groups would naturally form. And we'd go off and explore all these, you know, fringe, mainstream, unusual, very typical types of things. And we got such depth of inquiry out of what we did. It was incredible. So yeah, that's something of the experience that you might have, I guess, if that helps.
Sam, I thought that was really very useful. Thank you for sharing that. And I think this whole premise of self and peer group learning is a really, really powerful one. And the ability to create your own learning space where it is very much you are co-creating the content, you're driving it forward. There's a huge amount that you can learn from that. And it is a very powerful mechanism and a very powerful way of learning. So I think I don't have any questions. What this has given me is some excitement and enthusiasm to look much further into it.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
if you,
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, and you might be thinking about logistically, like, or how much of my time might I need to put into this? And I think we talked about this among Simon, Kevin and I mean, that's kind of impossible for us to answer, but we'd like to help you feel into that space, right? Because it depends on the topic. Because in some things, you're going to already have a depth, and in some things, you're going to be quite light. So some things you're going to want to explore more deeply than others. But I guess it's about, because of this work that you do, you already know about organizing your time. And so there's going to be something of like, so long as you set aside some time to do whatever inquiry is appropriate for you, you're going to be able to manage this course just fine. There's two key requirements that I'm not sure we talked about, like the keeping your own self-development journal and building up your case study as you go through. This is going to be time that you're going to need to spend creating these artifacts as you go along. And with what Simon was talking about with the material that comes in the learning platform, it's expected that you're doing work all the way through. So it's not like you do nothing in the 2 weeks in between calls. You know, there's like you evolve your learning as you go through. I hope that helps.
and the hope is that much of that work, much of the time that you're spending in this is actually what you do in your day job.
Mm.
So it's not like you've got your day job and then you have to do all the stuff for this. The day job is the work. And we're hoping that what you do in your day job is adapted and changed throughout the course and throughout the content and the work that we're doing, so that it's actually what you're doing in the organization, which is where you're spending all your time doing the work for the class. So you should be able to get a win-win in terms of for your client or your permanent position and do the course at the same time. And plus, like Sam said, the extra bits for the case study and the journal. So hoping it shouldn't be like, you know, you've got this day job and then there's all this stuff to do. So it should work like that. Awesome. If there are any other questions that you think of outside of this, feel free to contact us. Probably the best place to go is Charlie, who is here. So is that right, Charlie? Is it best to email you with questions? Yeah, so it's probably many of you have Charlie's email address, and probably can just stick it in the chat if you mind, just so that it refreshes people's memory. So feel free to ask any questions, anything you want. Then obviously we can get back to you with answers. So I think probably we're coming to the end of our time. Does anyone want to say anything else before we close the session?
So what's next?
Yeah. Who is it who said that? I missed that.
Sign up via the link. Come and join us.
Yeah, I guess so. If you want to come along, if this excites you, if you feel that this is something which is like, oh my God, this is what I want to do, then yeah, speak to Charlie. There's also more information on the website, yeah, sign up. And there are some places there. We are expecting, well, I'm hoping that we have a full cohort. So yeah, but there's definitely places left now. Otherwise, you know, be bothering to tell you about it because it'll be full. So yeah, feel free to sign up. That'd be fantastic. And yeah, we very much look forward to seeing you. And if there's still things you're unsure about, then like I say, email Charlie and one of us will get back to you. And here we go. Okay, fantastic. So we have reached the end of our time. Any more questions, feel free to communicate with us. Obviously, we'd be more than happy to help. Just out of respect for your time, will end now. So thank you for your time. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.